Welcome back, everybody, to the Miami Marlins franchise. We are on to our first offseason of the series today. We knew year one was going to be a challenge with this team and that we would struggle. We finished as the worst team in baseball, last place in a variety of categories, including runs scored and on-base percentage. But that's the kind of challenge I was looking for this year, and now we get to begin reshaping this roster. And we'll see how much is actually overhauled in this first year. This is going to be very much a draft and develop series, which the draft in MLB, of course, is not held during the offseason. So what do we do here during this stage? Much of this series is going to be focused on our drafting and then developing of those top prospects. But these off seasons are still going to be very important. Can we find some strategic moves, getting some veterans at certain spots that make us better and can make us better for a long time? Are there some players that have struggled around Major League Baseball that we can sign for lower contracts than you might think? Maybe there are some trades that make sense. There are a couple players in mind for me that we could look to move either during the off season or during next regular season. I've been making this content for a long time, and I've always said that these series truly begin once you get to Season 2 and you start making your first big changes. So I can't wait to get to the offseason today as we'll go through the postseason first. Here was the bracket, by the way, as the 1 seeds were the Minnesota Twins and the Philadelphia Phillies. How close were our Marlins to making it to the postseason? Well, we were only 34 games out of a wild card spot, so maybe we'll get a little closer next year. Wow, so we get a Cleveland and Atlanta World Series, already a couple games into it. And the champions for year one in this franchise are the Atlanta Braves, who defeat the Cleveland Guardians. It looks like the series did go 7 games, with Spencer Schwellenbach getting the victory in Game 7. Matt Olson hit a 3-run home run, perhaps. And that's how the Braves take down another title. And it's quite fitting. I've talked about this. Like, the way they have constructed their team and the way they've kept it together is something we have to do as their adversary in the NL East. Ronald Acuna Jr. only makes about a third to a fourth of what he would be expected to make as a free agent because he signed very early. And that's what the Braves have done with most of the players atop this roster, honestly. It happened with Spencer Strider. This runs through some of his arbitration time into free agency. And then Michael Harris Jr. signed a similar contract. He signed through 2032. Now, the Braves don't operate with the same budget that we have to in Miami. Yet they've still made these moves, and it's let them keep one of baseball's best cores together to make another run here for the Season 1 World Series in our franchise. When the time comes, we too need to look at which players make sense for those long-term deals that can keep players around for a long time. This early in the series, it's hard to say who really fits that. I could see Connor Norby being one of those players if we see his defense, and I think the on-base numbers pick up more in Season 2. What about Yuri Perez? He's the number 1 player in the organization. I wonder if we're actually too late to make a move like that with him, just because he's already an 85 overall. The time for that will come. That's skipping a few steps, but I thought it was important to talk about with the Braves winning this year. But like I said, we are on to our first offseason of the series. Thank you all for the support. Let me just get the postseason MVP shown here. Ozzie Albies is the World Series MVP. And the postseason MVP is Marcell Ozuna with 9 homers in the postseason. But again, thank you all for the year one support. It's so fun to launch these series and to see everybody get excited at what is to come. We had a nice, fast first year, and now we get on to the real beginning of this series. We do have our pitching coach contract coming to an end, and I think we're going to want to replace basically the entire staff. Here are retirements, including veterans Charlie Morton, Adam Ottavino. Ryan Presley's kind of a big one. Justin Verlander, Martin Maldonado. But yeah, no Marlins are retiring, considering that we had like the youngest team in baseball. Wow, not even Verlander makes it to the Hall of Fame here. That's very surprising. But this is the staff we've had to start the series. A lot of these coaches only have C attribute grades and actually hurt a lot of our ratings. How do we have a coaching staff that hurts our entire team development? Now, I was thinking about what ratings I wanted to emphasize here, and because like the top thing we have in our organization is starting pitching, I really want to develop and make the most out of the talent we have. But the big rating of concern for me is K per 9. In general, we see lower strikeout numbers when we're going through seasons in MLB The Show. Even Edward Cabrera, 129 strikeouts and 140 innings. 8.25 really isn't all that high, especially by modern flame-throwing standards. So I think that has to be an immediate concern. This is a very low rating just across the board. I also think our discipline is an area of concern, and this is going to help players draw a lot more walks. In Season 1, we had the worst on-base percentage in all of baseball, and there are just so many things we were bad at. It's just about everything in Season 1. We can't fix everything or prioritize everything, but the strikeout numbers, the on-base numbers, two of the concerns here, and we are basically going to be cleaning house here. And we're still going to have to pay a lot of these contracts, but we're not going to come close to our budget here when we're spending in the offseason. So I'm okay having to eat a lot of that money and reshape this entire staff. So we need a new manager in Miami. And right away, I'm interested in Jose Rivera, who would help out our plate vision, power, stealing, all things that we want to work on with this team. And he does not have a managerial record. I guess I've never seen that before in past games when you're hiring a new manager. Andrew Wesley would help us with plate vision, contact, and power. Wouldn't have plate discipline here, but that would be a really good hitting coach for us to have. Dominic Townsend would help us with the strikeout, walk, and home run numbers, while also possibly increasing stamina for our pitchers. That seems like it could be really valuable. We're going to have an all-new coaching staff this year, and here are all the offers that I've made, which I think would be a huge upgrade over the staff that we had. Exclusive free agent negotiations. This shouldn't take long because we don't have any. This was the youngest team, I think, in all of baseball. And as of right now, there is nobody who would even hit free agency next year on the team. There we go. We have a farm director now, Sandy Alomar Jr. Oh, come on. Jose Rivera, instead of becoming our manager, will become the Pirates farm director. So we have everything now but a manager on the team. All right, apparently the Braves are looking for a manager. We're going to compete for the same guy then. Isaac Stratton would help power, contact, and durability. They're trying to only offer 2 years. We're going to offer 3. So we'll go through and renew the majority of these contracts and see what we're left with in terms of room. Not really much to talk about here in this stage. A lot of these early player contracts are just kind of basic. The first few years of a major leaguer's career, you just kind of renew these deals. They don't really have a way to negotiate for money. You just either sign them or you don't. So I've renewed the majority of these contracts now, but I'm leaving some roster spots open for our incoming draft picks. But one of the things they addressed going into MLB The Show 25 is salary arbitration numbers, and contract demands in general are meant to be higher. We do have a fair amount of players who are arbitration eligible. So the way things work in baseball, if you're not familiar, is that you need 6 years of service time to hit free agency. When you first get to the majors, you're probably just going to be eligible for those renewal deals that I just did. They're pretty basic and the lowest salaries in the majors. Then after a couple years, you can become eligible for arbitration, which is what we're about to go through. And basically, these are larger salaries. And if the two sides can't come to an agreement, then the team gives a number, the player gives a number, and a neutral arbitrator decides which one is the right value for that player. So let's see where these numbers go then. Edward Cabrera, he is the top player that is arbitration eligible. And right now he is looking for, 6.5. That's a lot higher than many arbitration salaries I was having to hand out in past series. Even for players well into the 80s or even low 90s at times wouldn't be getting the large arbitration salaries. Now, in real life, I believe the largest this past year was Kyle Tucker's in the ballpark of $16 million. But in these cases, I would much rather get an agreement done before going to arbitration. But I think actually in this case, I could probably go to arbitration and do better than at least $6.5 million here, I would think, for Edward Cabrera. So that's what we're going to do. Now, the other thing here is that arbitration hearings aren't held until February. And if a player isn't under contract already, you can't trade them. So I actually think we should explore potential trades with Braxton Garrett here this offseason, which means we need to come to an agreement before arbitration. If we want to do it, now. I guess we could always do it later. But Braxton Garrett, I just don't know that he has the high ceiling that fits into this rotation and can beat out a lot of the talent that we have. He's also 28 years old, and our competitive window is still a ways out. He has lower hit per 9, K per 9, home run per 9 numbers. I just don't think he's going to be like a top of the rotation guy. And the contract he'd be looking for is $7 million. So the way it seems it works this year is that these demands are pretty high. And it really pushes you to then go to arbitration. So I'm still interested in trading Garrett. I will probably look to do that, at least look into it, then at the end of the offseason. Now we get to Jesus Sanchez, and his situation's a little bit different because last year he made $4.5 million. He's not going to make less this next year. So it might be easier to come to an agreement this way for a little bit more instead of offering an arbitration salary right now. Now, I've never looked too deep into it as far as how they figure out their contract demands. Because think about Jonah Bride and him going to the All-Star game last year. Doesn't it seem like he'd have a pretty good case to have a significant arbitration salary jump? Because right now the contract demand here is only $2 million. That doesn't seem like it has enough interest though to actually get done. I'm going to offer 2.3. So this is already different than a lot of my past off seasons where it was easy to come to agreements prior to arbitration. But with the demands where they are, I think we're going to have to wait for all those hearings, which means we don't exactly know how much budget room we have. That's the one thing here I'm not liking, is that the pending offers are not updating based off of arbitration offers, and they're also missing a lot of the actual contract offers I am putting out. So maybe it'll update on a different screen or something, but it's not really giving me a good indication of how much budget I'm actually using or have left. And I'm not really getting a pattern or anything on the demands for these players. Some want like 4 million, some want under 1 million, so you really have to check out everybody's situation. But I think I've offered either a contract or arbitration to everybody that was eligible. I've never been great about setting all the numbers here as far as like the optimal way of doing things, but here are the top offers that I did give out, and we'll just see where this all goes. We also have to set our 40-man roster, which apparently has 41 players right now. That's kind of odd. But we can waive some players that have like D potential. Those are easy decisions there. Liam Hicks, he was the Rule 5 pickup of last year, and he might actually be our bench catcher this season. So I'm going to first remove Shane Sasaki. Davison De Los Santos had a weird season. His offense actually, his contact ratings and stuff went down. Everything else went up. but I think we're going to waive him off the 40-man roster now with his ratings not really going where I wanted them to this year. But all right then, let's take a look at free agency. Players like Kyle Tucker are available. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's looking for 7 years, $25.5 million. I still think that demand is just way too low and is way under what I think you'll eventually get in real life. Kyle Tucker's asking for 36. I don't see why Vladdy is asking for over $10 million a year less. Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen, Dylan Cease. This is a really good year if you need starting pitching. And these contract demands are certainly much higher than they've been in years past. Like a mid-80s player was not getting $26 million in the past games. That was reserved for 90-plus overall players. Typically, I think these pitchers in like last year's game might have been getting more like $8 to $12 million a year, which made the team building just overall easier, and it made your budget kind of trivial. So if we talk about what makes sense for us in our situation, obviously we need to give playing time to those who need it in order to develop. So players like Connor Norby, they're going to keep playing. We're not going to try to upgrade at third base right now. But I do think we can always look at a bullpen arm or two. And then I'm looking at our outfield, as Jesus Sanchez, I think, is a really solid player. But outside of him, we are a lot more unproven. Derek Hill, also 30 years old. Griffin Conine, 28. But the thing is players tend to hit free agency in baseball at a later age in their primes. So a lot of other 28 and 29-year-old players. But as far as what makes sense for us, I'm going to say on-base machine after our struggles with on-base percentage last season. And then I'm going to say power pitcher, which might be a good fit for us looking for a potential reliever. As far as positional needs, I'm going to say left field, center field, and then reliever. Now, the free agent system they introduced in this game is very similar to the scouting system. You can focus on 3 players at a time. You're focused on building up motivation with that player. So it doesn't give us like an indication right away here for like Kyle Tucker, but we're not going to be signing him or even attempting to. Okay, I found this here. If I go to the budget page, then arbitrations and renewable estimates, that's where it's located. We get a better idea then of what we have available, which is saying is $68 million. So the first name that kind of caught my attention here was Willie Castro at 28 years old. Because he can play so many spots, is a pretty good defender, decent offensive player, very well-rounded. Nothing really stands out offensively, but he is a good player. If we signed him, he'd likely become the top paid player on the team. $13.2 million a year is his current demand. So as far as finding like that young free agent that's going to fit into this team for the next 5 years, I feel like that's not going to really happen for us. But we can also look into potential one-year deals with players and consider just bringing them in to potentially trade down the road. All right, I've had some trouble finding players that I really think fit into what we're trying to build, but Devin Williams is available, and he's coming off a down season where he blew 10 saves in New York, posted a 4.7 ERA and a 1.7 whip. Maybe he's the perfect player for us to try to upgrade this bullpen, but still think about trading down the road. I mean, he's an 85 overall player. I also have Emilio Pagan on the board, who did put up really good numbers last season. I'm not sure I'd end up signing both, but I am having a lot of trouble finding position players that I think make a lot of sense. I did go over Willie Castro, who I think would be all right, but not the most exciting. Like, I don't see him turning into a huge, offensive addition. I guess there is a chance with him being 28, he just keeps getting a little bit better. So I think we'll start off with these 3 on our board. I do think Williams and Castro would make us better for year 2 without taking away playing time from players that should be getting it otherwise. And we have a manager now, and our coaching staff is now all filled out. Isaac Stratton is the new manager in Miami. We have a very good staff now with A or B attribute grades, and we should get a lot of boosts this year for development. I didn't realize how many of these were actually negative in year one. Rival opportunity. You heard through the grapevine that the Atlanta Braves are looking at Ryan Helsley. We are not going to be able to compete in that battle. I'm not even sure we can compete in these battles, as the Brewers are rumored to want Devin Williams back. Wow, Willie Castro really not interested in us at 29%. We're just going to remove him from the big board. Now, we can offer to Emilio Pagan, but I'm kind of interested in seeing where we land with Devin Williams, so I don't know if I'll offer here during this stage. Like, I did give some thought to maybe like Harrison Bader in center field. I think he could be an upgrade there, but a marginal upgrade. And at least the players we have there are a little bit younger with C potential. So is it really better to go after a player like Bader in this case? Okay, maybe I found someone I'm interested in here. Here's Lamont Wade Jr., late night Lamont. He can play first, the corner outfield spots. He could also DH. High contact, very high discipline, very high batting clutch. He's a 10 to 15 home run guy, reliable on base, might have a little trade value, and might actually be interested in coming to Miami. That's the most important thing. I'm actually going to go ahead and waive Matt Mervis here, as I am going to try to free up some spots to use the Rule 5 draft to look at some upgrades. So we have 3 spots available there. Ranger Suarez signs a 5-year, $138 million deal, and he stays in the East, signing with the Nationals. 84 overall pitcher, getting that much money. Yeah, it's a good thing we have a lot of young talent in our organization. Ryan Helsley's going to the Phillies, 3 years, $45.6 million. Framber Valdez to the Braves, 4 years, $112. Rival opportunity, the Phillies want Kyle Tucker. Yeah, it would be nice for us to be in that situation, but we are not. Devin Williams, 50% motivation to sign. Do we have a chance to maybe put out the first good offer to him? He wants about 2 years at $13 per year. I'm going to offer that contract. And we should get a bonus if we're the first team to put out a good offer to a player. And then Lamont Wade looks like we are close enough to negotiate with him. And I would like to try a 1-year deal, although that's going to drop motivation. So maybe I wait a week then. Oh, a decision is incoming. What do we have here? I've never seen this before. Get ready, everybody. A decision has been made. And Devin Williams is a Cub. Come on. It gets so dramatic just for us to miss out. They offered 4 years, 14.8. Wow. I have not done enough with free agency to really give a lot of opinions on it, but that does feel like the way something should play out. You know, in the past games, it felt like it might have been easy to land Williams with that offer I gave him. I offered him less years, less money per year. He ends up getting a big deal from the Cubs that we were never getting to. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr., wait a minute here. He's going to the Mariners. 8 years, $232 million. So I did say his demand was low. I didn't like where it was at 24. But getting a deal at 29 on an 8-year contract, while I still think that's lower than what he's ultimately going to get, that's better. So now I'm going to offer a contract to Lamont Wade Jr. $7.6 million is my offer, which would make him like the second highest paid player on the team. And I will be offering a contract then to Emilio Pagan. I'm finding some outfielders who would be fun like second chance candidates, but like the outfielders we already have, they're so splits driven. And I don't want to add more platooning outfielders right now. Now, I'm only able to see the top 150 free agents, and as some players get signed, there are names popping up that I am a little intrigued by. Mickey Moniak didn't work out with the Phillies, and then I know we had a good 2023 in LA. Then things drop off from there. This might be like our time to explore free agency more so. Like Esteury Ruiz being available. He had 67 stolen bases just in 2023, but he's got to get on base more often. I'm putting him on the board. A decision. Lamont Wade's decision is to come to the Miami Marlins, and that is our first free agent addition of the entire franchise. So I think where we are right now is that Jonah Bride and Lamont Wade can kind of swap either first base or DHing roles. I can play Wade in the outfield. It just might not be great defensively, so maybe there is still room for us to look at an outfielder. Dane Myers, Derek Hill, both are very splits-oriented players. With Dane Myers and Derek Hill, I mean, Myers, he slashed 232, 274, 381. And then Derek Hill had 236, 255, and 414. Yeah, we need someone else there. Emilio Pagan's decision is made, and he is also a Miami Marlin. Dylan Cease stays in San Diego, getting $32 million a year at 86 overall. The Twins are offering us a trade. Okay. What does Minnesota have to say? They want Jonah Bride. Now Minnesota decides to make a big investment or attempt to at first base. Deshaun Kiersey Jr. and Walt Graham. I don't think that's going to do it for me. Kiersey, 28 years old, see potential. I don't think there's enough time to realize a big ceiling there. And Walt Graham, not familiar. Lowest rated pitcher on the team, was probably one of their draft picks last year. I'm going to decline. Zach Gallen stays with the Diamondbacks and only got 27 a year. A lot less than Dylan Cease. Gallen is coming off a solid year, 3.17 ERA. 2.3 WAR. Dylan Cease, on the other hand, had a higher ERA and a similar WAR. And they're similar overall. But Cease gets so much more. Yeah, I think I'd be happy here with a 2-year offer to Esteury Ruiz. Kyle Tucker is still out there, by the way, far and away the top free agent. And Ruiz's decision is to come to the Marlins. So how about that? We signed a couple free agents now. We still have a lot of available budget. Still, I'm not sure we've really found a replacement starting outfielder yet. I think that Wade projects to play first or DH. Bride will do the one he doesn't. And we still need to figure out who's starting in the outfield outside of Sanchez. But I think the timing here is good. Now we can get to the Rule 5 draft, see where that gets us. Oh, this is actually one of the biggest moments of the offseason right here. Hold up. The 2025 draft lottery, and you already know we were the worst team in baseball. There shouldn't be a lottery when we're 11 teams worse than everybody else. Let's find out where we're going to be selecting in Season 2's MLB draft. The Marlins had bad luck for the 2025 draft, but in 2026, we're picking number 1. There we go. Biggest win of the series. We have our pick of any prospect we want next year, and we need to find the face of this rebuild. Man, that's a big contract for Michael King, and we have now reached the Rule 5 draft. Now, our signings have increased our 40-man roster up to 40, so we do need to make some more room again. Oh, we have a AA catcher here that we can remove from the 40-man roster. Yeah, there are some minor league players that we can safely waive here. I'm also going to waive Lake Bakar off of the 40-man roster, so we're going to have potentially 3 spots available for the Rule 5 draft. So if you're not familiar with what this is reserved for players who are in the minor leagues, but have been there long enough to now be eligible for this draft. So they're not letting teams just hoard prospects and not play them. I forget after how many years, maybe it's 4 or 5. These players are now eligible for the Rule 5 draft. You can draft players away from other teams, and the rules are If you draft them, they have to stay on your 26-man roster for the entire next season before you could ever send them down. If you decide during that first year you don't want that player anymore, you offer them back to the original club. So let's begin the Rule 5 draft and see if there's anyone that could make sense. Outfielder, reliever, both are on the table right now. And we have our pick out of everyone available here in the draft, including Dylan Coleman, 29 years old, B potential, 67. I think at the very least we would consider taking him. Let's get to the outfield then. Jacob Melton, Zach Cole, Hunter Bishop. So nobody above a 67 here is available. You're not going to find star players here, but sometimes you can find something you need. And potentially another reliever, Dylan Coleman. So he has 97 career games played, 93 innings, and his surface numbers are quite solid. Walk rate's just high. But I think he is an easy pick for us here in the first round of the Rule 5 draft. Not everybody chooses to take a player. Only a handful of players really get selected. And very rarely does a team take 2 players in the Rule 5 draft. We could actually pick up Chris Bryant from the Rockies right now, and we could absorb that $26 million contract. That's per year. We will not be making that move. I think that's going to be the only pick we end up making. Adding a reliever is usually a good option for a team in our position, and I'm still thinking that there is a potential trade coming up. Hey, I'm calling about Jacob Barnes. Seems like a good fit for your outfit out there. Well, here's Jacob Barnes, 35 years old, high pitching clutch. Had some really good numbers last year. Yeah, he should be in greater demand than he has been. I'll add him to the board for now, sure. I also put Tucker on here just because I wanted to show you guys what the motivation would look like. 16% motivated to sign right now, because we are considered long shots. Okay, this is pretty cool. You can go to this signings tab now and see who everybody brought in. Like the Yankees, getting Kyle Schwarber, who is bound to hit 50 home runs playing there. 3 years, $14 million a season. There were some of these players that I thought like maybe we could have gone after if, I just wanted to. But then they go get multi-year deals that I was never going to be competitive enough to offer. Marcell Ozuna gets over 20 from the Kansas City Royals. Willie Castro, he ended up getting more than originally he was looking for. So another big contract that I don't think I was getting to. And then there's us. Lamont Wade, Emilio Pagan, Esteury Ruiz. The Twins have called us up once again. They asked us about Jonah Bride earlier. They're doing it again. They really want Jonah Bride. Y'all are going to have to offer a little bit more. So if we end up trading Bride, we certainly know one team that has shown a lot of interest. Our next step is to see where these arbitration hearings end up going. Oh, it's a now or never situation. Oh boy, we better get our offer out there quick. And I better not see the Dodgers find a way to fit his salary in with like 72 years of deferred money. You gotta be kidding me. He's going to the Dodgers. It's $40 million a year. How is this even possible? They can't keep getting away with this, guys. How do they do it? Seriously, like, I need to see, I can't go into their budget page, but I seriously do not understand how they're able to pull this off. And Shohei's money is not structured here in the show the way it is in real life. He's just making $46 million a year, while Mookie Betts makes 30. Tucker makes more than him. Blake Snell gets 30 plus. I'm not salty about it. I can't believe after all of that it ends up being the Dodgers anyway. You might as well quit during free agency when the Dodgers are involved. And the arbitration hearings are happening. Edward Cabrera will be making $7.74 million this year. I believe he was asking for $6.5, so he ends up getting more than I expected. Calvin Fauché is going to make $1.2 million. We have Derek Hill for $1.3. We won that one. Biggest wins in the series ranked. I have the draft lottery, the Kyle Stowers Grand Slam in Game 2 game, the game that ended our 18-game losing streak, and then winning an arbitration hearing. Braxton Garrett is going to make $7.4 million. Wow. Ryan Weathers will make $2.5 million. Anthony Bender, $1.7 million. Andrew Nardi, $1.7 million. Jesus Tinoco, $1.2 million. So that should be everything then set up for this year. I think we are going to end up having a larger payroll than we did in Season 1. I do have this in my notes on the series. So Season 1 had $60 million in player salaries. This year, it looks like we're going to have $95 million. That is a significant jump. I think you're going to see a significant jump when the real Marlins go to 2026, just based off of how many players are in arbitration. I don't know if they'll be as aggressive as I was in free agency, which still isn't even that remotely aggressive. And we have now made it to the beginning of Spring Training 2026. They rank us as the 24th team in baseball. But are we done here? We have Braxton Garrett under contract now. Is there a trade that can help us out? Now, I did have a player in mind, and I don't think this deal is going to work out now. I had looked at the Orioles before they had re-signed Zach Eflin, but I was interested in bringing in Heston Kjerstad. But as I look at things here on the lineup tab, he is supposed to be their starting center fielder. And so I don't think that's a trade that would make sense for the Orioles. I try to be fairly reasonable in the deals I make here in these series. I rebuild a little bit differently than some others, which it might not be as exciting, but it's how I have fun, trying to be a little more realistic. It'll never be perfect, but I try to make moves where I feel like I'm helping out the other team when they're getting a player that I'm trying to trade. So I knew that Braxton Garrett had B potential, and he still has some time for his ratings to climb. I didn't realize how high of a B potential it was. I still wanted to trade him, but now I better understand why if I use the trade finder, I get so many huge offers. I spent way too much time going through my options. And I think after all, I have found a trade that I am happy with. I am targeting Diamondbacks outfielder Drew Jones. First rounder in 2022. His defense and speed are already top tier. It's the bat that needs development. Now, Garrett, 28 years old, high B potential. Drew Jones, 22, his B potential is an 81. So he does not have this superstar ceiling on the surface. Braxton Garrett would fit into their rotation and be younger than the top 3 options already in the organization. He also has 2 more years of team control, while Jones would get the chance to compete in an outfield where there's a little more upside for playing time here, especially in the short term. And we are going to make that trade. With Drew Jones, we now add the number 74 prospect in baseball and the number 8 center fielder. I did take some outfielders in our last draft, and they rank these guys a lot higher than they should, just based off of potential. Nelson Aiden, for instance, the number 2 center fielder, but he's a 53. He is so far away. MLB ETA of 2029, whereas Drew Jones, they're saying 2026. And we are trading for a player who is already on the 40-man roster as well. So we're either going to have him on the big league club this year, or we're going to have to start burning those options, which might be a good idea to get some of this offense developed. I think this is a little bit of a risky pick for us. Durability isn't all that high, and the offense, with all these ratings in the 40s, it's hard to say if they'll go anywhere that makes a serious difference. But I think it's a very good player to take a chance on here. This allows us then to have Yuri Perez, Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera, Ryan Weathers, and Max Meyer make up that major league rotation. And we know some of the players who are on the way. Noble Meyer, Robbie Snelling, Thomas White. These guys are all going to push for that next job this season. They'll probably all be at AAA with very similar ratings, and we'll see how that all plays out. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out long term, but I think it was a good time to have that domino fall, to get one player out of that logjam, get a prospect in return, and we'll see who can end up now solidifying a spot in this rotation for years to come. So is it the most exciting offseason we could have had? Definitely not. I wasn't going to make any big long-term deals. I did sign Ruiz here to a 2-year contract, and I do like the addition of DH/first baseman Lamont Wade Jr. He helps us solve a direct problem last year, as our batting average and on base were both terrible. And if he's just, in the ballpark of where he was last season, that is a huge upgrade for us. But I can't really understate how important it is that players like Connor Norby still get some playing time, that we can still have a chance to see if, Griffin Conine can do better than he did last season. But things are more competitive there now, adding in Ruiz and then Drew Jones into an improving outfield for this organization. Noble Meyer might be one of the next men up, but that's not going to happen until there is a legitimate spot in the rotation available, whether it's because of injury or maybe a Sandy Alcantara trade. And there's also the chance that somebody ends up struggling there at the bigs. And if they're struggling, they're less likely to develop. So there is some pressure, I think, this year. You got a couple pitchers with question marks at 26 years old. It's kind of a make or break year for guys like Ryan Weathers and Max Meyer with the talent that's behind them. That's what really creates the sense of urgency, because those players all have a chance to be huge additions. So it is put up or shut up time here for the bottom of our rotation. As we get into season 2 of the series, these are the top prospects, and Johnny Grieve is now atop the list. My first round pick last season. How long do we wait around for him to get his turn? I'd say his ETA is anywhere in the second half of this year or maybe even next year. If we think about what has to really develop for him, a little bit of contact maybe and some power, I'm not sure he's a player that needs a ton of time at the minor leagues. It's just, if he's at the bigs, he needs a starting spot. And the infield is where things are more competitive. Nelson Aiden, Andreas Ruiz, those two outfielders I drafted are the next two prospects, but don't expect to hear about them for a long time. I doubt we're going to even play minor league games with these guys for a little while, as they'll probably need some single A development and then maybe creep into double A at some point. Starlin Caba at shortstop, hoping the offense can take a step this year, because the defense is already in a really good place. Noble Meyer, Thomas White, we know these pitchers are all very good, but to get an outfielder now that is closer to the show was a priority, and this helps make up for not taking one of the more developed outfielders during the draft. So Drew Jones is now here. I'll have a chance to play with him in spring training. And then PJ Morlando, the first rounder in 2024. His potential is a 77, so he could be a bench player, maybe even a starter one day. It depends on how he develops. Beyond those top 9, I think there is a pretty good drop-off as far as future projectable starters go. It's the top 8 guys that I think are really exciting with high ceilings. Guys like Aiden and Ruiz, though, they're going to make us wait. I think with the pitching clutch here on Emilio Pagan, we can pencil him into the day 1 closing role this year. And as a Twins fan who watched the 2022 season, that scares me. He was better in 2023, but the memories of 22 live on. And then Dylan Coleman, we're going to see him hopefully have a chance to break into this bullpen. I do like the pitching clutch where it is. Higher hit per 9 is also nice. Just have to keep an eye on the walks with him. But I anticipate him making it into this bullpen. I'm also excited to see George Soriano come back from injury after missing around half of last year. I mean, he only got to pitch 21 innings. And while his numbers weren't good last year, nor the year before, I just want to see, these players with upside continue to get chances to show that they are at least improving. So the outfield then gets a lot more competitive for roster spots. Kyle Stowers still has a chance. He produced at the big league level last year. If that continues into the spring, we could see him still make this roster. At the very least, he'd be starting games down at AAA. But then I think that we'll have Derek Hill probably on the big league roster. He can play the entire outfield, mashes lefties, good in the field, very good speed. And I still like Dane Myers for a role because he can play first and third. So that might put Eric Wegman more on the cusp of making the roster. He can play first, he can play third, but his defense really isn't all that great. And then Javier Sanoja, he can still play a lot of positions as well. His spot may be relatively safe if I don't end up making another move there. But I definitely like to get in at least a few at-bats with newcomer Drew Jones and see if he has a chance to make any noise for us here in 2026. We're looking for players that can give us some hope and take us into the future. And maybe we got a little bit closer today. We were never going to take a massive step, though, in this offseason, so I hope you don't mind the more patient approach. Plus, players like Willie Castro didn't even have interest in us anyway, and we got turned down by Devin Williams. So we have to improve our standing before free agents even want to come here and for them to make sense in our build. By the way, I talked earlier about the possibility of making one of those big, long-year deals to secure a player here for a long time. I thought that Yuri Perez was probably a little too high overall for a deal like that, and I think that checks out. If we were to go into his free agent years, we'd be having to go to 2031. Those would be 5-year plus deals, which are already in the 12 to 14 plus $million range. I think the time to make those contracts is between 75 and 80 overall. And you have to be really sure about a player to pull one of those off. Even a player like Xavier Edwards, though, to make a deal like that, still looking at around 10 per year, which I don't think is unreasonable. It is around what Lawrence Butler got from the A's not long ago. I also think about Ezequiel Tovar's contract, so $9 to $10 million. That's kind of the range you want to be in. So you also have to factor in if you think a player is likely to graduate beyond that salary range given their skill set and their ceiling. So I think about Xavier Edwards, for instance, and because his power and defense is so low, I think he's kind of stuck at this overall range for a while, which will probably keep him under $10 million a year for a long time. So I don't think it makes a lot of sense to offer like 7 years, $60 million. You do get, you buy out some of the free agency years, and if that's what you're really looking for, it's an option, but yeah, it's still going to be at a pretty good salary, it looks like. But I think that is going to about wrap up our off season today. And this week, we're going to get into Season 2 of the franchise. We're not going to spend too much time here on spring training. I think I'll save that for when there are more prospects on the 40-man roster and for when it really makes some sense. Right now, though, I think we get on to 2026 and see what the new season brings to our Marlins. Let me know what you thought of the offseason down below in the comment section. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for much more Marlins franchise to come. We got a lot of years to go through and we're only through the first. So I'll see you all in Season 2 here before too long. Take care and I'll see you then.